Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on Service Operations Management. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concepts of importance of data analysis, the learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the will be able to understand what do we mean by data analysis, what is the importance of data analysis, and what are the various activities that have been undertaken in the business organization with respect to the data analysis. And lastly, what are the various factors that affect the data analysis. Now let's begin with our learning. Initially, first we need to understand that in an organization, it is very essential and necessary to see that how do we collect the data from various sources. Data is simple terms means any information that is being collected and available in a raw format. So when this particular data is being collected in a raw format, which is always either a structured or unstructured data, it helps to acquire a certain consideration as to how we collect a certain amount of information, and this particular data may be beneficial for the organization in terms of characterization, calibration, verification, validation, and assessment. And hence, using the data for the benefit of the organization in the short run as well as in the long run is essentially important and is necessary. There are various models which helps the data to be analyzed, to be collected, and to evaluate as to whether the data that is collected is important in the business organization or not. And hence, understanding the importance of data is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we can come to a conclusion as to the data that we have collected is either qualitative or whether it is quantitative. Now let us understand what are the various benefits from data analysis. The various benefits from data analysis is it helps to define a certain problem or a certain hypothesis. So on the basis of data analysis that we are undertaken, we can come to a conclusion or we can clearly understand as to what analysis we are making and what is the problem statement that we have defined. The next consideration is with respect to the defining of a statement, which is merely called as an hypothesis. Hypothesis is just mere a statement which makes a certain prediction or a certain guess, which may be true or which may not be true. And hence, it can be applicable for the business organization or a market situation, which can be either rejected or which can be either accepted. The data that we are collecting may be collected from the various stakeholders. It may be useful to them and it can be available for the ready-made information for the reference purposes. And lastly, the concept of data analysis also helps to identify and define the scope of analysis of a certain work. So what work we have undertaken, what is the benefit of that particular work that was being undertaken, and how in the long run the data that we are collecting will be beneficial and helpful for the business. Measuring the relevant data and conduct basic analysis to spot the anomalies. So we need to collect the relevant data which has been required for the business organization, which is important. And only on those particular basis, the analysis of data should be undertaken. And we need to spot the anomalies also. That is where the data can be helpful, where the data can be of a loss-making situations, and so on. And hence, analysis of relevant data, conducting the basic analysis as to percentage, ratio, fraction, numerical analysis, increase, decrease, and so on. Such type of analysis is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we need to spot the various anomalies. Analyzing the correlation and patterns and putting up your statistics for visualization skills to work. So we need to always collect the data, and on the basis of collection of data, we need to analyze and prepare the various statements. The data can be presented in forms of various bar diagram, pie charts, histograms, and so on. On those particular basis, the various visualization techniques can be applied in which the data can be available in a very presentable way. And hence, the benefits of data analysis give you a certain understanding that it creates a certain interest in the minds of the people or the reader, and it creates a certain visualization as to how the data is beneficial to the organization and how the data is being presented in a very effective way. Now, let us understand why do we need to conduct the data analysis. So, in the corporate world or in the modern business scenario, data analysis is critical for understanding the challenges and exploring the data in a meaningful way. So data is nothing more than the number and facts. So it is just an information that we have collected, which may be either in a written format or a printed format. And accordingly, we are just collecting certain facts and figures that have been associated with a certain product or a certain market situation or a particular service. So data in simple terms is just a collection of information. So, but in case the whatever data that we are collecting, when it is been analyzed, then we can say that data analysis is the process of organizing, interpreting, structuring, and present your data into valuable information. So all the information that was available in a scattered way, you need to bring it together in an organized form. You need to interpret, that is, make various analysis, make various interpretations, and then come to a conclusion as to what data is being saying to you. Now let's take an example wherein there are 10,000 customers who are purchasing a particular car, which is Audi. Now, when 10,000 customers are purchasing car that is an Audi, why they are purchasing this particular car, what are the various perceptions behind purchasing this car is not known. And when we collect the data, we ask certain questions to the individuals, we can come to a conclusion and we can find a certain analysis that X, Y, Z, or a particular reason is a particular consideration on which basis the customer are preferring the purchase of Audi car. And hence, on the basis of data that we have collected from the actual purchasers or actual people who are using those particular car, then we can come to a conclusion as to why data analysis has been important and how it has been helpful to the organization. And in the same case, presenting the data as a part of it, valuable information is also necessary. Whatever data that we have collected, we always also need to present the data simultaneously. And hence, presentment of data is also essentially important. If the data is not being presented very effectively, then accordingly, all the energy that is being invested in terms of data collection goes into vain, and accordingly, no analysis of data can be undertaken or no interpretation of data will be helpful to the business organization. Now let us understand what the various types of data analysis. Number one, the first is the descriptive analysis. So in case of a descriptive analysis, it is a completely description of what data you have collected. Let's take an example wherein a particular topic is been given for you, and that particular topic is the culture. So on the basis of culture, what you will do, a particular analysis or data analysis needs to be undertaken. Now, culture of what? So culture of a certain purchasing decision, purchasing of a certain product or a certain commodity. So in this case, now when we say that a culture of purchasing or wearing a certain sari, now, wearing a sari is a part of a culture which is applicable in the Indian scenario, and the descriptive analysis can be the tradition, the mode, the festive seasons, the purchase of saris, and the demand for this particular sari, the number of customers, the number of wholesalers, suppliers, manufacturers, dealers, and so on, in which the entire description of economy, culture of Indian economy will be explained. So, in case of a data analysis where the entire description or a theoretical perspective is given, such type of analysis is called as a descriptive analysis. The diagnostic analysis, the second type of data analysis in which the diagnosis has to be undertaken, that why such situation has been arised. Now, in case of a medical or a particular pharmaceutical industry, usually a diagnosis has been undertaken for a certain disease. In the same case, the diagnostic analysis for data is being undertaken to identify why data has been collected, for what reason or purpose the data has been collected, and what is the source or what is the reason for collecting of these particular data. And hence, diagnostic analysis deals to or undertakes a certain scenario wherein we are trying to find out why such activity or action is being initiated. And hence, diagnostic analysis is a type of data analysis wherein we try to find out all or answer all the WH questions. The predictive analysis. In case of a predictive analysis, we try to predict a certain situation and we try to find out whether those particular predictive situation is been favorable or unfavorable, whether it is achievable, not achievable, and so on. And hence, predictive analysis focuses on what are the various terms, conditions that can be considered, and on those particular basis, what predictions we can take in a business organization. And hence, predictive analysis focuses on what activities can need to be undertaken in a business organization and how do we predict a certain situation. The next perspective is prescriptive analysis. So in case of a prescriptive analysis, we always try to identify, we have diagnosed a certain problem, we know what is the solution for that particular problem, but we provide a certain solutions that these particular prescriptions can be given, these particular solutions or options can be given, and accordingly, which is the best feasible solution. So analysis which is being undertaken on the basis of options that have been available, the data type of analysis is called as a prescriptive analysis. Now let us understand what is the process of data analysis that can be implemented in the business organization or in the service operations management. Number one, the first thing is identifying our questions. We need to identify what is our question, and accordingly on those particular basis, we need to start collect the data. The second step that we need to consider is collection of data. So in the second case, we need to actually collect the data, and on those particular basis, the data collection activity needs to be undertaken. The third step that one needs to undertake is data cleaning. So on the basis of data that we have collected, some data may be useful, some data may not be useful. So we need to always clean the data, and accordingly, only accurate, specific, and correct data needs to be undertaken for the further analysis purpose. Then comes the actual analysis of the data, wherein we need to analyze what data we have collected and what is been actually desired or been required for a feasible solution. So analysis of data is the fourth step of the perspectives. And lastly, getting the insights. So on the basis of data that we have collected, we need to come to a certain conclusion, and we need to come to get the insights about what data can be collected, how the various inputs can be implemented, and in what way the data can be analyzed in the business situations. Now let us understand what are the various habits or good habits for efficient data analysis. First thing, we need to be very being obsessively concerned with the quality of the data. Always the data that we are trying to collect should be always of a qualitative nature and not of the quantitative nature, wherein the qualitative data will provide you qualitative results, and accordingly the end resultant will also be a very good consideration. Taking your data with the grain of salt. So in other words, an anomaly in your data is almost always the result of data entry or coding error. So we need to always observe and find out that whatever data we are collecting, it should be used as a part of a pinch of salts, wherein if any single or a small amount of data is been also been collected and it has been taken, it should always provide the qualitative results to the business organizations or to the interpreter. And hence, always the results of the data should be qualitative and it should be helpful for the individuals. Tempering our expectations if someone or a co-worker tells you something about the dataset with high certainty. So accordingly, one needs to understand as to how do we expect a certain data to be made available. Whether it has been referred or it has been used by the first-hand information or by the second-hand information, we need to effectively analyze and identify a certain situation about how the data set can be collected, it can be beneficial to the business organization, and in what way those data can be beneficial. And lastly, taking the data with a grain of salt. So here in this way, another word we have to use is we have to be very enthusiastic with the use of that particular data. So taking the data as a certain consideration wherein the optimum utilization of data can be undertaken, and whatever data that we are collecting, we are implementing in the business organization will be helpful in the short run and will be helpful in the long run. A certain data that is available should not be applicable to only one section or one department, but that particular data should be applicable and should be beneficial and helpful to all the participants or all the departments in the business organization. Now let us understand what does it mean to make a data-driven decision. So in order to see that a data-driven decision is being taken, we need to always collect the data on the basis of strategic judgment and the data analysis interpretation about what it entails. Companies and people can use the data-driven strategies to organize their data to make an analysis, but we always try to aim and we must try to strive and identify about how the data-driven decisions can be implemented in the business organization. The presentability, the usage, the applicability, the enforceability of all the considerations should be there in effective concern, and only end results which are of a qualitative nature should be delivered to the consumers. The data from whom we are collecting, all those particular participants should be made readily available and known about why the data has been collected, what are the various benefits or uses of such information and knowledge, and how it will be applicable in the long run as well as in the short run. And hence, analysis of these particular data is essentially important to understand and identify how it will be beneficial to the people or the public at large and the customers and the consumers also. So here we can come to a conclusion that the information that we are collecting is very essentially important and necessary, which is being collected on the basis of facts, measurements, information that is available in the market in the general scenario. The data or the information that we are collecting, it should always be in co-alignment with the vision, mission, goal, and policies and objectives of the business organization. And accordingly, it should be only used for the benefit of the business concern. When businesses use the full value of their data, everyone is empowered to make the data-driven decisions on the daily basis. So on the basis of data that we have collected, whenever a qualitative data has been collected, it will healthy or it will strengthen the business organization, and accordingly, on those particular basis, we can create a value addition to the business organizations in the daily basis ongoing business scenario. And hence, it is very necessary that how do we interpret a particular data, and on the basis of data interpretations, we can make the data-driven decisions or the judgments. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood What do we mean by and what is the importance of data and what is the benefits of data record and maintenance. And lastly, we have understood what are the various insights of data and how it can be made applicable in the business organizations in the short run as well as in the long run. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning in this particular session. We'll stay connected and we'll continue with our learning. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.